George Thorogood and the Destroyers are a high-energy boogie blues band that released its first album in 1977. The band broke big in the 1980s with songs like Bad to the Bone and I Drink Alone. The band also helped popularize their older musical heroes by covering songs such as Move It On Over, Who Do You Love, and One Bourbon, One Scotch, One Beer. Thorogood has released over 20 albums, 2 of which have been certified platinum and 6 have been certified gold. A total of 15 million records sold worldwide. Thorogood and his band continue to tour extensively, and in 2024, they celebrated a 50th anniversary. The band is currently touring Down Under in Australia and New Zealand with ZZ Top. I call that a pair of aces. We caught up with longtime drummer Jeff Simon, and the first question I have is, how long have you been playing with George?
Oh, I've been in with George since I was 9 years old. The guy that normally played the drums was drunk already. And he says, "Hey, you still have your drums in the closet?" I went, "Yeah." And he goes, "Come on over to Ernie's. Brian's already drunk and we're having a party and we're going to play some music." And so I hadn't talked to him in a couple of years before that, right? So at that time, I was listening to this record, Fleetwood Mac in Chicago. And so Jeremy Spencer was playing nothing but slide in Fleetwood Mac, and he was doing all Elmore James stuff, Madison Blues, and so I was wearing this record out. I just loved it. And so I heard Jeremy Spencer play Madison Blues before I heard Elmore James play Madison Blues. That's another thing we can talk about, is how the English had to teach us about blues music. So we get over to this party and George is playing all this stuff. I went crazy because I love, slide guitar. I love it. So.
All right, Jeff, tell us about the current tour Down Under with ZZ Top.
This is our 11th trip down here. So New Zealand and Australia. And we do extremely well down here. Or we did. Well, we started coming here in 1981. And then now we're down here with ZZ Top. Awesome. I would live down here if I could, I love it down here.
Somehow I don't think you're ready to retire down there yet, Jeff. The drummer for George Thorogood and the Destroyers, Jeff Simon, our guest today from New Zealand, where the band is on tour with ZZ Top. Earlier, Jeff talked about how he joined the band when he was 9 years old. All right, Jeff, what was the set list like back then?
Okay, so when we first started playing, our repertoire consisted of 15 Chuck Berry songs, 5 or 6 Bo Diddleys, maybe 17 or 20 Elmore James songs, Jimmy Reed.
Like a lot of great blues and rock bands in the early days, you guys were a trio. What is it that makes a trio work so well?
Well, the material is what makes it work for anybody, no matter how many people you have in the band. It's just a chemistry that works with certain people. We did shows with Stevie Ray Vaughan before he had record deals, and him, Chris, and Tommy, and it was basically a Jimi Hendrix, Albert King show. That's what he was doing, but it was just the power, the energy, and what they were playing.
You're touring with ZZ Top, one of the best trios of all time. What were some of your favorite trios?
So these guys, like Billy Gibbons, right? I mean, I love his playing so much. And so he's versatile enough. And then he's, over the years, so he didn't really have to add another piece because he could play different styles on his guitar. And so he's not limited that way. So that's when you're playing as a trio, you can be limited to what you can do. Just depends on how good you are, I guess. But thousands of guys that can play circles around us on our instruments, but if you don't have the material, it doesn't matter. We raised some ruckus as a trio. We used to play 2.5 hours. That's what our shows would be. The thing with our band was the energy. The energy of it was popular, and George is a great entertainer. So there was that. Boot Cheer, I never saw them, and then obviously Jimmy. That was, oh my goodness. He was a freak,
We're talking with Jeff Simon, drummer for George Thorogood and the Destroyers. Speaking of destroyers, I served on a U.S. Navy destroyer in 1968 with your brother, Pete Simon. Yet you and I have never met. Countless club shows I've been to, big concerts, even Live Aid. and somehow we never got together.
I wish I'd have known. I had no idea that you were at BCN, right? And then MMR, and I had no clue until after you had left MMR. So I heard someone talking about you. I went, Charlie Kendall, he's in the Navy with my brother. I wish I'd had known.
I wish I had known as well, although we might have found more trouble than we bargained for. All right. What advice do you have for aspiring musicians today?
Yeah, I don't know. And people ask that question, you have any advice? I said, if I was a band starting today, I have no clue, because it's the way things have traditionally been done. That's not what happens anymore.
Many thanks to Jeff Simon, drummer for George Thorogood and the Destroyers, for 50 years of great music and spending some time with us.
Hey gang, this is Jeff Simon from George Thorogood and the Destroyers, and you're listening to Charlie Kendall's Mental Shot.